If you are authentic and you can have empathy for others and they feel the ability and the freedom and permission, which is a big word, permission to be authentically themselves, you go first as a leader by like, hey, this is who I am. You can be who you are and you're gonna be accepted because I actually believe that your uniqueness is gonna be an asset to this team.
Are leaders afraid to connect because they fear the real them would be in conflict with their current role? For that organization to ever have success and have longevity, you have to come into that place, but very naturally, in a rebellious manner, which that doesn't mean it's against others.
Right.
It's not choosing to conform and be what you're not.
You are responsible for doing the inner work. No, your wife can't do it for you, your husband can't do it for you, your therapist can't do it for you. You are responsible for that part.
You know, as I mentioned, as I was introducing you and just as you shared that framework with me, and to me, it spoke volumes based upon what you've heard Jake share and Katie and the piece that I shared yesterday. And it just, to me, it continues that entire conversation. But I think for me, in my mind, I can make those connections. But I think for a lot of people, they can think, Graham, you were talking about business owners like you two. Like, I'm a leader. I don't own my own business. How does that relate? And so I share that context to ask you this conflicting question. See, I'm learning, right? Are leaders afraid to connect because they fear the real world, the real them, would be in conflict with their current role? Okay, so let me give you a little bit deeper as you think about that. You asked the question to start off, have you let the real you come out and play? And, you know, as you went through a little bit more, and I wrote that down, are leaders afraid to connect with people? Because if the real them comes out and then all of a sudden, oh, I'm in major conflict with my role because that's where I'm conforming and doing my job today.
Oh, 100%, right? Because there is a predetermined path. This is what we think of a leader should be. So when you think leader, you think of something or someone, either you were taught or there's someone you're modeled or your company culture has already, there is conformity is there by default. That's the default. And there's a million reasons why we don't conform in all areas of life. And I have to unpack that in depth in the book, but it's like, we don't want to stand out. We just want people to accept us, right? We want people to like us. Some people like to rock the boat, but a lot of people don't. I'm very conflict avoidant, so that was my weakest C in the storytelling. Katie's like, I don't like conflict. So there's a lot of fear there. It's just fear of, if I'm in a leadership role, if they knew the real me, or if I showed up in the way that I feel like is truly me, what's that going to do is that going to shake up the predetermined path? And so since we don't want to lose our job or our role or our status or favor with the powers that be, we're just really good. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are really good at like putting on whatever mask I need to put on to blend in. You know, if there's probably a lot of threes on the Enneagram in this room, if you do the Enneagram, and the Enneagram is the performer. Sometimes some books call it the achiever, but it's really the performer. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to be whoever I need to be for whatever room I'm in. And so that, like, you're a chameleon. I'm really good at reading. This is me too. I'm really good at reading the room. And okay, is this a room where you're bombastic? Let's be bombastic. This is a room where we're quiet. Let's be quiet. You know, this is a room where like, oh, you're really the important person. Then I'm going to shut up and listen so that I don't look like a jerk. And so I'll just, whatever I need to be for whoever I need to be it, it's out of fear and it seems safer. And it is safer. But safety sucks sometimes because it doesn't lead you to fulfillment, right? Like, you're going to die slowly on the inside. And so it is a choice between being yourself and fighting the fear of maybe myself isn't accepted, which I think we have this in relationships. I think we have this, this is why this is going down a rabbit trail. Parents.
Keep going.
A lot of times, I'm not an expert at parenting, but I know the pressure with a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old of wanting my kids to like me. And so I will let that dictate who I need to show up as, when really my job is to lead them and train them up in the way they should go. And so that means I have to be willing to step into my full role and not be liked by them to do what's best for them. And so again, it comes down to fear. But I think on the other side of that is, man, I actually think the opposite. If you stepped into who you are, because your big thing is empathy. I think if you are authentic and you can have empathy for others and they feel the ability and the freedom and permission, which is a big word, permission to be authentically themselves, you go first as a leader by like, hey, this is who I am. You can be who you are and you're going to be accepted because I actually believe that your uniqueness is going to be an asset to this team and a company. And I think you could start a trend and shift the culture in a different way.
That was good. That was good on a couple things that hit me strong. This isn't part of my questions, which is fun because I get to do whatever, is as an Enneagram 3 of, conforming to the room. I'm an Enneagram 8 challenger. I have to fight the bull in the china shop. We think about that. How many leaders, we talked to yesterday about intensity and how many people have that armor of intensity. It's natural to me because, again, being a challenger, like that's easy for me to go into, but I need to realize, Tyler, dial it back. Dial it back so that way as a leader, I don't come into conflict with others because I'm trying to, conform to the role, right? It's like, no, I got to be in the room. I got to be with people. And you mentioned empathy. I'll talk about that in a bit. But the importance of just coming to grips with that space and being okay with it and not saying, if I'm the real me, then I'm actually, not serving the role. When you're the real you, you'll actually serve the role in only the way that you can, in which everyone needs. And we get that so wrong because in organizations, and I know I talked to people yesterday, they fight that in organizations because organizations don't act like that. You're like that tall poppy. It's like wrong. For that organization to ever have success and have longevity, you have to come into that place, but very naturally, in a rebellious manner, which that doesn't mean it's against others, right. But it's not choosing to conform and be what you're not. Let's trying to transition here. Not the easiest, but I'll just go with it. Is we talk about that, but now think about how am I going to lead that guy? How am I going to lead that woman who is not happy, not fulfilled? They're living this disappointing life. Now I got to lead them, right? We just talk about how many leaders struggle to actually be the real them because they're conforming. Now somebody's got to lead me when I'm in that spot. How difficult is that?
Well, two responses. One, I'm not the best person to answer that because I've always had a small team and I don't do a ton of like team leading in my own company, but people are people. And the way I see it is if you're a leader, you're a coach, right? So this is where I struggle is when I've had team members not doing what I want them to do for me. I just want you to do what I'm paying you to do and do it for me in the way I want you to do it. And I can be so fixed on, the outcome. I love the outcomes that I miss the opportunity to set that aside for a minute and say, hey, maybe I could help coach this person. Maybe I could help them find themselves. Maybe there's a secret weapon in there that I don't know about, or maybe they're just on the wrong seat of the bus. Like how many people where we want to kick them off the bus of our team, but we just have them in the wrong seat. And I don't think they even know what seat they should be on. Because again, no one's really doing this kind of deep inner work. Nobody knows who they really are. And so my best guess is that your teammates and team members don't even know who they are. So what if you could do the work for yourself, figure out who you are, and then help them figure out some of the things. What do you dream about? What's your vision for your life? What do you think is your strength or uniqueness on this team? You don't know. Let's see if we can figure this out, because then maybe, just maybe, you could either put them in a different seat on the bus, or there's a part of them that they're trying to suppress to play along. If they're trying to be nice or trying to play along with a predetermined, and you're going to give them the freedom to say, you know what, I see you kind of struggling in this area, but what if the real you came out and played in this way? Maybe our team would be that much more diverse in the good sense of the word. Like, you add something we don't have, and we desperately need that.
For somebody that doesn't have the answer, to me, in my mind, that's the perfect answer.
Well, that's good. I passed the test. My Enneagram 3 is feeling good right now. I got it right.
Good. I'm good. But that's it. If you're struggling with people, that's a you problem. It's a you problem because you're trying to conform them to what they're not. Let them be the rebel. Embrace their rebel. Be the person that understands what they're great at and go let them do it. I had this, in one of the teams that we led, is understanding and appreciating being an incubator, not an incinerator. I'm not going to burn you out because I want you to do how you have to do it. I'm going to put a nice little warm lamp underneath you and allow you to blossom to whatever it is. And if you turn into a duck rather than a chicken, I'm going to sell duck eggs. But understanding, hey, that's part to me of leadership, but it also comes back to one of my unique gifts of being an arranger and being able to see that. But what I just heard from you is somebody's like, yeah, I struggle in it, but then you work through that and realize, oh, I really got to do what I did for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think leaders think about it that way because it's easy to say, do the job I told you to do. It's hard to do the one, oh, I have to treat you like a person, like I'd want somebody to treat me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot like marriage is the great, like,
I'm not good at that.
Like the great leadership. Well, yeah, I don't think anyone feels like they're great at it. You're just like screwing up and then you die and you're like, well, I learned some things along the way, you know?
Okay. Good. I'm glad I'm
But
not
think
alone.
about marriage. So you probably, if you're married, anybody married in this room? Anybody marry their opposite? Oh, why do we do this, right? Life would be so much easier if we married someone just like us. My wife is Shay. She's literally the best person I know. But like, if she could just be more like me, like all of our problems go away. We're happier all the time.
Man.
I'm definitely happier.
Yeah.
And it came up, I remember in conversation with Shay a couple years ago, she's really good at telling you how it is. She's like, here's what's going on here. And I'm conflict avoidant, so I beat around the bush. And she said, I really wish you would not look at my differences from you as a liability, but look at them as an asset. She's like, I'm the thrill-seeking one. Like, she took me ziplining. I still got to tell you the rest of the story. She took me ziplining in Colorado last week, and we almost died in a lightning storm. Like I would never go do that because I like my life too much to go die. And like, but she's like, I used to be like, no, let's not go do that. I don't want to do that. And she's like, I know you don't like thrill-seeking stuff, but I like it. It might be good for you, you know, to like loosen up a little bit. And she's right. But she had a serious moment of like, I really wish you would look at my differences from you as an asset, not a liability. And I think there's something there for team, which is, of course, I see the world through my lens. I get that. It takes a lot of maturity to try to see it through other people's lenses. We get that. But it is never going to get easy because you are who you are. But I think over time, if you could figure it out, like it's say in marriage, like maybe our marriage would be stronger if I figured out what makes you you, and we figured out that that's actually an asset. And there's parts of you that need work, and there's parts of me that need work. And that's the beauty of team, is that you hopefully soften the edges or sharpen the iron, however you want to look at the metaphor. So it's not like being a rebel isn't like, this is who I am, deal with it. It's just like personality tests, like, oh, this is my personality type, deal with it. There's a light side and a shadow side of every personality type. But it's like, hey, this is who I am. So how can I see the pros of it, the assets of it, and the assets of you? And then, man, we could have a powerful marriage, a powerful team culture. Same thing with my kids. Why can't you be like your sister? That's like the worst thing you could tell your kid.
Yeah.
Because we all have that one kid that we just understand a little bit more. And it's so painful when you say, she's like this. And even if you don't say it like that, it comes out sometimes like that. That can destroy a kid and give them a really expensive therapy bill when they're grown up. Because they're like, my dad wanted me to, like, my sister's really outgoing and funny and I'm really quiet and I don't know. It's like, man, okay, what's the sweetness about my youngest daughter versus my oldest daughter? They're different. How can they actually learn from each other? And how can I learn from them? And that's a beautiful thing. It's hard. I don't do it very well, but I feel like that metaphor carries over to team.
Hey there, this is Tyler, and I wanted to take a moment away from the conversation. You're listening to a brief interview I made at the Impact Driven Leader Summit 2024. If you want to hear more from this guest as well as others, you can access the full event by visiting theimpactdrivenleadersummit.com. As well, you'll be able to reserve your spot to attend the Impact Driven Leader Summit 2025, May 7th and 8th in Spokane, Washington. All right, now back to the conversation. Man, there's a lot in that. The one thing that you did share that I think that is something that I've tried to get better at. I'm not great at, but tried to get better at in our marriage is appreciating what Kelly is good at and not trying to change it. And it maybe doesn't come across that way, but I'm getting better at that and just appreciating, yeah, you're going to see it completely and absolutely differently than I am. And that's okay. But as I've learned, especially the thrill seeking, Kelly's much more of a risk taker. And what's funny is people that have gotten to know me in the last couple of years, like, dude, you take risks. I'm like, no, that is my wife imparting that on me. So I appreciate you sharing that. I wish we have as much time as I want to have time, right?
I think you're the boss here.
Well, no, like you all are, and you guys could all walk out. But I want to talk about the two pieces and I'm trying to look at my notes here because there's a lot, because that means you shared a lot of good information. It's good. You talked about fulfillment and the fulfillment formula of success, satisfaction, service. And several years ago, I was going through just my own journey of understanding fulfillment, and I created something called the fulfillment cycle. And it is fulfillment, frustration, confusion. And I believe life takes us through that journey, that corkscrew. And we go from fulfillment to frustration, like this is not working, to confusion, like I have no idea what I'm doing. And you keep on the pathway and you go back to fulfillment. And as you were sharing that, I realized, all right, in your mind, as I share that now, how does that fit into the fulfillment formula? Because I think it does, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear your take on it.
Oh, I love that. So yeah, so this would be like Rebel 2.0, right?
Okay.
So
you guys, I'm going to pause you there because I want everyone in the audience to understand you've just shared an element that I learned from the guy speaking this afternoon that you didn't take from me, I didn't take from you, but you made it better. So go, Rebel 2.0.
All right. So if I were to do like a sequel to this book that hasn't come out yet, which is, maybe a John Maxwell thing. He's already got like 17 in the can, right?
Yeah.
So step one, what Rebel's all about is finding yourself. Like you figure out who you are, the stuff we started to talk about today. Because that is going to lead to fulfillment. That's the part of life that you control. You are responsible for doing the inner work. No, your wife can't do it for you, your husband can't do it for you, your therapist can't do it for you. You are responsible for that part. Then just about everything else is out of your control. Like when life hits the fan, when tragedy strikes, when the economy shifts, you can't control that. And so I think sometimes then you get tossed into frustration and then confusion. Wait, why is this happening to me? This is not how I scripted it out. That's real life, okay? It's not all hunky-dory, which I love that. It's not hunky-dory. Conflict, right? It's a good story. It'll make a good story down the road, not fun in the middle of it. That's why knowing yourself is so powerful, because then Rebel 2.0 would be like, okay, take what we did in Rebel, finding fulfillment, and then track it over time when life gets crazy. How do you then have a process to, now the fact that I know my uniqueness and know what dreams I have, know what the outcomes I want, bring me back to the top of your cycle of fulfillment again in this new season. So for example, kids, when you didn't have kids, marriage is sometimes like easy. For me, it was like, we can travel, we can do whatever we want. And then you have kids, like, oh my gosh, responsibility. And they're really demanding and they're not appreciative. And they don't even say thank you because they can't speak yet. And they're throwing up on you. And you're like, this is not how I want life to go. But then they change. And then, okay, then what can fulfillment look like given our uniqueness in this season? And then it changed again. Well, now they're teenagers. So there's pros and cons there. Well, now my fulfillment and uniqueness can play out in this way, over this. So you chart your uniqueness and fulfillment over the course of time, and it probably looks different than it did 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But that becomes that North Star for you of when I know who I am, I know what lights me up, and then guess what? 10 years from now, you are going to be different. That's why you got to do this again. I want new things. Actually, I've learned this new thing about myself, and I have these new dreams. And so you're keeping track of that, but that's going to be the North Star that gets you out of the confusion, out of the frustration, back to the top of your corkscrew or your framework or your cycle, so you can be fulfilled in this new season given these uncontrollables.
So you alluded to something there that is if you stay in the cycle and just understand that's the cycle, you'll come back around, right? And you'll go through that, like you said, the season. The worst thing you can do is take the off-ramp of distraction. So if you get frustrated and you distract, I'm going to go do something different. Like, this is the wrong path for me.
Sure.
If I get confused, I'm like, this is a dead end. I can't go in here. You get distracted, do something else. You will not come back to your true fulfillment because you've taken the off-ramp of distraction rather than stay with it, continue to do the work, continue to follow your formula of the success, the satisfaction, and the service, and understand where that's at in life right now, and don't get off by going through distraction.
Okay, so I don't know why we're talking about marriage again, but this makes me think of marriage. This is where marriages fall apart.
Okay.
Right? And I'm not, there's no judgment, like there's a lot of reasons why marriages fall apart, but one of the reasons that's in your control is choosing not to get off the ride, right? If marriage is a giant roller coaster, right? Because you didn't know. It's a giant roller coaster. And I don't even know what I'm doing, and I know enough to know
19 years this year?
It'll be 19 this year.
Yeah, same for us. Yeah, maybe there's something to it.
So the key to surviving on a roller coaster, in case you didn't know, is just don't jump off. Just stay on it. You'll get to the end, right? You'll get to the end. It's going to be high points, low points. And the problem is when marriage gets frustrating, and if you want to swap out marriage for business, the economy, your team, whatever, To your point, we want to get out. This is painful. I want to get out. This is not what I signed up for. How many of us have felt that, said that? This is not what I signed up for. You're not who I signed up for. You've changed. I've changed. That's real. That's hard. And I'm not trying to make light of it at all. But there's something to who are the people, sir, you've been married 51 years, you said? What was your name again? Dan. Dan's been married 51 years. What's the secret to being married 51 years? Stay on the ride. And I'm sure there's a lot of specific wisdom there. That man has not gotten off the ride.
Yeah.
That's the only way. There's no way his marriage was perfect the whole way through. But the beauty of what he and his wife have done is that they've decided we're in this together and we're going to stay on. It's a choice. And so then that forces me to say, I can't control my wife. I can't control Shay. And I try.
I appreciate you sharing this because I'm not alone, and I know there's someone in the audience who realize, okay, yeah, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So what can I control? Me.
Okay.
My season of life has gone up and down. Even when my first business took off, it was so fun. But then when I started to lose interest in the music side of the business, I had a new identity crisis intersection, not because anything bad was happening, but because I no longer loved the thing I was known for and good at. Then what do? That's when people really get screwed, is when they're good at something and it makes a lot of money and everyone knows them as something and you don't like it anymore. Then what do? Now you're really stuck. And that's where I had success and I had service, but I didn't have satisfaction anymore. And I was like, who am I if I'm not this music, guys? And I was so confused and I wrestled. And so my wife saw the side of me, which was lamenting and frustrated. And she was like, can you please, if you don't like it anymore, do something else. I'm like, you don't understand. This is what I'm known for on the internet. And once it's on the internet, it's always on the internet. Like, you can't pivot. You can't pivot. She's like, what? There's no rules. There's no internet rules. You can pivot whenever you want. And I just had to do some inner work to realize, man, if I don't pivot and get into I loved business. I love teaching people about business. If I don't serve people there and find my satisfaction and success there, I'm going to die on the vine. And it was killing my marriage too. Yeah. So she couldn't control me. I had to do some inner work. And the same with her. She's going through transitions. Yeah. All those factors of life affect all the other ones, by the way, too, right? You don't live in compartmentalized, nice little neat, categories. And so I think it's staying on the ride when work is tough, where relationships are tough, when the team is not the way that, like, the team used to be amazing 3 years ago. Now this person left, they got promoted, the dynamic has shifted. Okay, yeah, it's different. So stay on the ride, do the part you can do. Don't get distracted. I love how you said that, get distracted, because distractions, you can numb yourself. That's one way to get off the ride. You can literally leave. That's one way to get off the ride. You can point at everybody else's failures. That's one way to get off the ride, because you're making it not about you when really it is about you, because for you, it's always about you. You can only control you. And to serve other people, to give yourself to other people, you have to go back to John's song. I have to find myself, know myself, get over myself, so I can give myself. And that's always happening constantly.
I'll tease you. I'll tell you about another layer, and maybe we'll record another podcast, because I want to get to something you just talked about, the identity crisis. And that's one of the big pieces in my notes. I've talked within people in my roundtable community, and that's where they're at in life. And that happens in life. There's a gentleman last night, Jake and I were speaking with, who's going through that right now, sitting in the audience. And as Jake and I talked about that identity crisis, and you brought it up today, one of the things that I realize in life that causes the most conflict is we don't appreciate that journey and what you shared as far as you get to that point, right? And you don't understand it's going to come. If you anticipate and understand, then you can kind of prepare. But if you don't, then all of a sudden it becomes this, oh no, and our insecurities start to just scream at us. So talk a little bit more about that and what you've gone through to kind of wrestle with, that next season. Your daughters are getting older. All of a sudden, you don't have them anymore at home. Like, just think about, as you've gone through that, the preparation and dreaming as that's coming as a solution to that.
Dreaming is fun at first because you're letting yourself get back to your natural state, which is, as humans, we're so creative. We create. Right? Like Robin Sharma said it, everything is created twice, first in the mind and then in real life. Like, everything good is invented in the mind first. You came up with a good idea, and that's our natural state. And it's fun at first if you allow yourself to dream. But then come the, what if, there's this, and how's that going to be possible? And the economy's bad, or, inflation, or, my marriage, or my kids, the season I'm in, I can't do that, or whatever. Then all the reality sets in, and we talk ourselves out of it. I have had multiple seasons where I've had multiple identity crisis intersections.
I thought you were going to say multiple identities, and maybe that's something else too.
Maybe I do.
Okay.
Maybe we need to talk about this. I don't know. I don't know if I'm paying you enough to help me figure this out. But I am in, I would say I'm even in one right now. So this book, Rebel, even the book coming out, the book that it is in this season of my life is not the book I was going to write. I wrote a book all about the business model I teach online. It was the one of the publishers like, yeah, this is the most logical book to write. Let's do this. It's done well. I'm really pleased with it. And I know I want to write more books, and I'm 9 months out from the book coming out. And then I have a session with John Gordon, and I was trying to ask him about doing more speaking. I was starting to get into more speaking, and I'm like, yeah, you're like a killer speaker. You're doing all this kind of stuff. Just, wise one, like I'm coming to the guide. I'm like, teach me, guide, how to become a great speaker. And he said, what's the message of your next book? I was like, bro, I just published a book. Like, can you clap for me? Like, that was a big deal. I felt very proud of that. I don't know. I just taking a long vacation and a long nap. And he said, well, what's the message of your next book? I was like, I don't know. I could write about this. I could write about that. He said, well, do you want to write about those things? I'm like, I don't know. And it kind of came back to dreaming. And so we had this long lunch, and I couldn't come up with anything. And he finally was asking me my life story. And I will credit John for the title of the book. I mean, he wrote the foreword. I give him all the credit because we had this moment together where I told him my life story about wanting to be a rock star and the guidance counselor and not wanting to go to college and my parents and losing my job, all this stuff. And like when I lost my job, he's like, well, why didn't you get another job when you lost your job in the recession? I was like, because I didn't want to, bro. And he's like, see, you're a rebel. You don't do what people tell you to do. And like in that moment, I'll zip up the story real quick. That's when I knew I needed to write this book because he gave me a word for my own life. And I was like, dude, that's exactly who I am. And I can see all the pieces, but I needed someone else to show it to me and he gave it a name. But as I was at first excited about the dream of, okay, this is the type of book I wanted to write, but in 10 years, I'm too young to have like this type of book. I thought I was like, in 10 years, I'll have had a couple books and I'll write that kind of book about dreaming and all that stuff. But God was like, no, I want you to write this book now. And the publisher agreed 6 days later, like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds great. When can you have the manuscript in? I'm like, I have no idea what this book's about, bro. Like, I have to figure this out. And so then I started to get panicky. Loved the dream, but then I was like, I don't know if I'm the guy to do this. And then my insecurity started showing, to use your language. I've only written one book. It's in the business lane. I'm known for business now. This is a very broad personal development book. My audience doesn't follow me for this stuff. Like some of them are gonna come with me, but a lot of them be like, bro, just stick to business. I'm gonna have to deal with like state. Like now there's new lanes, new predetermined, conform to this is the lane you're in, bro, on the internet. And I'm changing again. First I was the music guy, and then I'm the business guy. Now I'm gonna try to get to the personal development space. Like I'm not trying to change anything, but my dreams keep coming up and it keeps freaking me out because I just wanna be successful and happy. But then I keep wanting new things and then I get scared again. And it just goes to the cycle of like, do I conform and stay in the lane I've been in because now I'm successful at this thing? And then I'm really scared to change again. But I'm getting better at pivoting. I'm getting better at pursuing these dreams because I've had more practice of freaking out. But it's a new identity crisis intersection. And that's a good one. Like the hard ones are the hard ones to deal with, right? Like you have an identity crisis intersection because of a disaster or a tragedy or something. Mm-hmm. Those are harder. This is just because I have a new desire, a new dream. But the pain is still there of like, there's a path that would be a lot easier to stay on. But the path over here that looks fun or looks freeing is going to cause some ripples with myself, with my wife, with my people, and I don't know if I want to deal with that. And so I'm in the middle of one of those right now, speaking about this topic, getting this book out there. It's scary, but it's fun at the same time. Did that answer your question?
That was great.
It answered my question.
I mean, that's what matters. Did it answer anybody else's question? I mean, I guess it answered mine, so we're good. Graham, thank you. Thank you for being
brother.
here. Appreciate it.
Love you, bro.
Awesome. Thanks for spending time with me today. I want to invite you to hear even more from the Impact Driven Leader Summit. Click on the link in the notes or go to theimpactdrivenleadersummit.com to get full access to the video recording from this guest as well as all the others. At that website, you can also reserve your seat for Impact Driven Leader Summit 2025, May 7th and 8th in Spokane, Washington. Thanks for being here. Until next time. Choose to lead with impact.